NBA world, meet Lindy Waters, a.k.a. the Rainmaker. If you've been paying attention, I thought this might happen. But it's really funny because, halfway through that game last night, the narrative, the story today was going to be Steve Kerr benches Jonathan Kuminga. And now that no one's even talking about that, right? No one's even thinking about that. And we'll get to Kuminga here in a second, but let's talk about Lindy Waters III, a.k.a. the Rainmaker. I'm trademarking that, y'all. You almost just start calling him that. Just know where you heard it first. He is more than a shooter. You see the length and the size at the guard wing position, right? But you watch him defensively. You watch him navigate screens, right? Communicate, rotate. And then even offensively, you see him cutting off the ball, attacking closeouts. He is, again, a basketball player, not just a shooter. And I keep going back to this point. When you look at this roster, you have all these guys at the right time in the right place. And you put him into this infrastructure, in this system, and first game with us, official game, you saw what it did, right? So that's first and foremost. Lindy Waters, it's going to lead to a lot of speculation with this 12-man rotation. Now, is it 13? No, it's not going to be 13, right? But it does feel like Lindy Waters is somehow, some way, got to be a part of this rotation. You saw him coming off pin downs. They were running Steph actions for him. And again, it's all seamless. Oh, yeah, and he's big and can defend. And you heard Steve Kerr post-game. He said, frankly, Lindy has been one of our best players from day one. Maybe I had a little inside info. No, I'm just messing with y'all. But yeah, so Kuminga doesn't get the start. And I think contextually, right, optically, it was like, oh, wait a minute. No Steph, no Wiggins, no Melton, and JK still can't start? And it almost gave you this feeling of like Steve was just waiting for a reason, right? He was just waiting for a reason. But I was happy to see Moody get his opportunity. And then, of course, Buddy really just closes them out. What did he have, like 20 points in the fourth quarter? It was nuts, right? But lost in the splash nephews, lost behind Waters and Buddy's performance in that second quarter. It was really a team effort, and we'll talk about it. I don't want to forget about Pods. In this summer, during the trade negotiation talks with Lauri Markkanen and all that, you had a lot of people scoffing at the fact that the organization in the front office was like, no, he is our future lead guard, essentially. I don't know what it was verbatim, but they were like, yo, he's going to be the future leader of this team. That's how we view him, right? Well, he kind of looked like that last night. And you want to talk about a disruptor as a defender. Like, you get it. You don't want him necessarily as your point of attack defender, but when you combined his effort with his anticipation, and now in year two, you're seeing him, he knows some of the tricks of the trade. He understands what teams are doing. He is becoming a plus defender and a great team defender. And he weaponizes effort, right? And it becomes contagious. And that is the most exciting thing about this game. Yeah, it's an exciting comeback win, right? But it was how it was done and with whom, right? And this young team, it's not a young team when you consider, the OGs at the top, but this new team, we're starting to see them form an identity, and they're dogs. First to the floor, and they bullied, not just physically, but psychologically, the Pelicans down the stretch, right? They took their spirit with effort. They're weaponizing effort, and then they have the depth to do so. Oh, yeah, and the chemistry is clicking. So, this was a pivotal game, I think, as we've played 4 games. I know that sounds dumb, but it's like, okay, Steph and Wiggins are out. Like, we've heard about this depth and these young guys ready to take a step. What's this going to look like? And again, they're starting to form that identity. Kuminga comes in. The first thing that I'll say is when we can create turnovers like that, 24 of them, you can't expect that. But when you can give that effort consistently and it'll lead to turnovers, the pace pushing is always going to help Kuminga, right? Because we know he flourishes with that. But even in the half court, I think what we're starting to see with Kuminga is he's figuring out kind of a go-to move, a signature move when he gets to the nail and then he kind of squares up his body, right? He gives you like a little hezzy or a little pause, and it's an off-rhythm one. It's not rhythmic. Like when you watch Brandon Ingram, it's all rhythmic, right? Because he wants to get to that jump shot. But with Kuminga, it's kind of like start and stop. It's kind of unorthodox. And then he blasts past the defender and gets to the paint. And you saw him, I think, make a conscious effort to get off the three-point line. So then you saw him making some patient reads, playing defense, leading to offense. It's contagious, right? When everyone's giving that effort, you don't want to stick out like that. You don't want to stick out like that. And so, yeah, man, it was a complete team effort on a string. And as fun as the threes were and the offense were, and I guess we got to talk about Buddy here in a second, I enjoyed more watching the Pels wilt to the pressure, the ball pressure and effort from this Warriors defense led by these young guys. And then Buddy, who, again, right time, right place, man. Because Buddy Hield, outside of maybe a year or two in Sacramento, he's never really gotten the star treatment from the teams he's played on, really since Oklahoma, right? And so not starting him in the second half, that doesn't affect him. I guess you could say, well, he hadn't been starting anyway, right? But it didn't bother him at all. In fact, he rose to the occasion. And I understand when you're dealing with a sniper like that, like it's a fine line of what's a good shot and a bad shot. But there's an added confidence when you are really an elite shooter, like Buddy Hield, like Steph Curry, like, I'm not going to put it on him yet, but you know where I was going. There is a resistance to a slump or to being cold in a game. There's an added resistance level that these guys have because their teammates know who they are. They know what they can do, right? And like if you're Kuminga, for example, and you've missed 6 perimeter shots in a row, dudes are like, are people kind of talking out the side of their mouths or side-eyeing, like maybe stop taking that, right? With Buddy, it's never going to be that. And you even heard Reggie at halftime tell him like, hey, man, let that thing fly, right? And so that you can see what he's capable of. And so long as Buddy isn't getting destroyed defensively and picked on, you've got to give him opportunities throughout a game, even if he's 0 of 8 in the first half of a game, because eventually, I know people say there's no such thing as the law of averages, but eventually a shooter's going to shoot, and he's that caliber where he can close you out, right? That was Steph-like, what Buddy did towards the end of the game, but contextually, just the team defense is what's got me excited, man. It's going to be difficult to match the get back of the Pelicans tonight, even though it seemed like we kind of crushed their spirit, right? CJ was over there like, I'm trying, Jennifer. I'm trying, man. But, if you pay attention to these baseball series or these back-to-back games that the NBA has now, it's almost always a split. Unless there's one dominant team, maybe that's what we'll be. No, but it's hard to match that. And I'm curious to see if we can still bring that level of energy and juice on a back-to-back against an opponent looking for get back. What I would be curious is Zion's endurance. Can Zion even play back-to-backs, right? Like I know he's dealing with like the Bayou bubble guts or whatever that's going on there, right? But I would test Zion's endurance on the back end of a back-to-back because he was a monster. He was a monster. He is. When have you seen Draymond that helpless defensively, right? Like it's crazy. And, that I think the closest thing, you could say Jokic, but it's done in a different style, is Giannis, right? Where it's like, dude, it's just inevitable. Like there's nothing you could do with him. But somehow it feels more spectacular than Giannis, like watching it, right? You're like, dude, what? It's like he's playing horse out there. It's nuts. But I would test his endurance, and they picked on him defensively. When you look at he and CJ out there, that's two just like weak defenders. There's no other way to put it. And running them through screens and getting shots, man, it was just, yeah. You can tell I'm excited. But again, that said, I think that they're going to be tested tonight. I think it's going to be tough. If they can sweep this little 2-game series, call me impressed, especially without the chef, Wiggins, Melton. Look, I'm in too good of a mood to talk about some of that stuff there, but we expect them all back sooner rather than later, and now they're taking advantage. They're making an opportunity of the misfortune and showing this depth. Guys are getting opportunities, and Kerr's going to have more of a dilemma. Does Lindy start tonight? Does the Rainmaker start tonight? Nah, he ain't going to go there. Maybe Maybe. Listen, I understand pecking orders, seniority, and keeping people happy with chemistry, but it is what it is. And that dude's a ball player. Let's talk underdog. As always, use the code Alchemy. You can get up to $1,000 on your first deposit. It's Boosttober. There's all sorts of boosts and NBA specials. I think there's a LeBron one tonight, but let's talk my Warriors picks. So long as Podziemski is starting for Steph, I love his rebound and assist numbers. He just gives too much effort. It's too natural, especially now with the assists. I think guys are starting to figure out when he gets to the paint to 2 feet and he starts pivoting, he's waiting for a cutter. I know sometimes he ends up settling for a weird shot. What he's really doing is waiting for some sort of cutter. Guys are starting to move and he's finding them. And then for Portland, CJ, you'd expect him to have some sort of bounce back game. So I'd be looking at his numbers. But again, use the code Alchemy, get the bonuses, play along. I've been winning. Patron breakdown is out now. That thing's 13 minutes. It's a really good one. I got in on this one here. So you can check that out. All those links will be in the description. I'll be back tomorrow to talk about hopefully sweeping these Pelicans. Hit that like, share, and subscribe. I'm out, y'all.